So obviously we know that Jimmy's going to be hanging up his boots this summer. Big question for England, as I think we've already touched on so far in this podcast, is who's going to replace him? Because as we've also said in this podcast, England have plenty of fast bowlers, but a lot
Are
of
they
them are
fit?
injured, or at least like to be injured. There's not a great fitness record when you look at some of the players who have been sort of mentioned as contenders to replace Jimmy. Peter, is there anyone who you kind of think is a sort of no-brainer when it comes to replacing, or do you think it's actually quite a tough decision for who's going to kind of be able to make that step up?
Well, there's going to be a step up. I think that's inevitable. There will be people that have either been blooded recently or on the radar that will step into the squads. There are also a few of the options that have been around for a while that will take the mantle, you say, for a bit, I guess. Actually, I'm looking at a BBC article here from early, about 10 days ago. It was written by Callum Matthews, and he's basically outlined a bajillion people um, that could be potentially taking the mantle of Jimmy Anderson.
Mhm.
Um, he starts off with the obvious three. That's Mark Wood, Chris Wokes, and Ollie Robinson. Now, I guess with those three, they're kind of like the obvious ones to come in and immediately take over. So those are the ones that you'd imagine will play a lot, either a significant part or a fair amount of the summer going against West Indies and Sri Lanka. But are they going to be the ones that will take England into next summer and the Ashes and summer's over? I'm not convinced. Mark Wood is obviously a fantastic bowler on his day and offers a bit with the bat. Chris Wokes is an all rounder and is excellent in English conditions. And Ollie Robinson, at one point was the odds on absolute no brainer taking over from from um, from Jimmy as like the next Jimmy. But they've all got their problems. Wood and Wokes, for instance, are the other side of 30, which is, speaking as a 30-year-old person as well himself, is seems mad to say, but but they're the other side of 30. So are they going to be the person that takes us into the Ashes? I know that this England team focus on game by game, but Jimmy's retirement is we've already mentioned is a nod to the future as well as it is the next game.
Mm.
I don't think Wood, and particularly I don't think Chris Wokes will be the person that takes us to the next Ashes, because he's got a historically pretty poor record in Australia. Mark Wood is permanently injured as well. And I think Ollie Robinson, I don't know about you, but has taken a bit of a knock in terms of his place in the standings since last summer. Really, he couldn't maintain fitness even though he claimed he could. And then in the Indian series just gone, he had pretty much no part to play whatsoever.
Mm.
He dropped
I
a
think he
catch,
he
got some
literally bowled
runs.
a couple of overs, I think,
Yeah,
didn't
he
he?
did.
Like
Yeah, he
that was about it.
barely did anything. Got a new
Yeah,
haircut though.
he did. So yeah, I'm pleased he hasn't been wasting his time when he's not been playing. That's all I'm saying.
What do you think on those guys? The ones that have already been about the block. What do you think on those guys?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I mean it's hard to disagree with you really because we know they have contributed and we know that they can continue to contribute. But if we're if we're heading into the next couple of summers with them three as our main three bowlers, I think we should be a little bit concerned. And I think the if that is the case, then I think something will have gone wrong in terms of picking out players
Mm.
from the county game to make a breakthrough. I think, you know, Mark Wood, as you said there, brilliant bowler, injury records and his age very similar to Walks, and not so much with the injury record, but just as you know, we can't really take him away from home because he's just. I don't even think it's just Australia. I think it's just in general his record home and away is just it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
It's
Actually, to be fair, you're right. India, he doesn't have a good record either. Yeah, that's right.
yeah. And yeah, Robinson. I just feel like his chance to be the kind of first name on the team sheet in the bowling attack is probably gone now. So I do think definitely keep them around. I don't think they'll be sort of playing at the same time. I think we'll kind of perhaps even rotate them three this summer, which I wouldn't mind. I quite like that as like the more senior option in the bowling attack. Just so you know, we haven't got, I know it's the spinners, but we've talked about how we had sort of three spinners in India who, had barely, well, hadn't played Test cricket really, and they all kind of came in the firing line, and they all on different occasions they all sort of proved themselves. So I guess that's kind of evidence of being able to say, you can push these players into the deep end, and a lot of the time it actually works out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
It works out that way. But yeah, I mean, you said there's absolutely loads of names who have been kind of on the fringes. For me, I think one who should get a chance this summer is, or another chance is Matthew Potts. I think he was
I think
quite
so. Yeah,
unlucky last year. I think he didn't really do much wrong. I think it's a case of the ball and attack when you've got Mark Wood, Walks, Broad, and Anderson all available. They're going to be all there, sort of ahead of him in the pecking order. But now I think he'll probably be thinking, he's had a decent start of the season with Durham. He's probably there thinking, you know, his chance has probably come. And yeah, I've got another list in front of me there, and yeah, there's a lot of names who, have some players have had you know, they've had a taste of Test cricket, and they'll be thinking they can probably push on. I mean, Josh Tongue, I think he's one where I thought he looked a good option to have around the setup. But then you've got a lot of players who haven't played in Test cricket and fully deserve their chance. I mean, I think I was reading a couple of articles when they were kind of saying probably the best well, as close to like for like replacement in terms of kind of ability England could have now is probably Sam Cook at Essex, where
yeah, I've seen
he's
that.
he's
Yeah,
got 265 wickets as under 20, hasn't he's 26, kind of getting towards his prime, and you just think surely this summer is the time where out of all the players mentioned, I think for me he should be the one who's getting the nod. I think this summer.
so that's the Paddy of City Pointers. That's the Paddy from City Pointers. That's your pick.
Yeah, it's tough to choose because there's a lot of players on that list who deserve a Test debut this summer. But for me, it's kind of crazy that he hasn't had a Test debut already. To be honest, when you look at sort of the first class records of certain other players, and he's got 265 wickets in first class cricket. So yeah, for me, I think he could and should get his Test debut this summer. And if he ends up being the natural replacement for Jimmy Watt, kind of a lot of pundits have been crying out for, then happy days.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a point there that to be said about having someone that has no previous England A, if you want. No, that's not right. The England full team um, experience coming in. Tom Hartley is a prime example of someone that had none of that and performed pretty well in India. I want to sort of retreat a little bit on what you said about Matthew Potts. If I'm not mistaken, Matthew Potts had an excellent tour of India with the England Lions, and was unlucky not to be drafted into the squad when there was some injuries and replacements had to be made
Mhm.
in the winter just gone. Josh Tongue is a great call. Josh Tongue is currently injured, so I don't think he's due to play any part of the summer, or
Mm.
maybe that's Jamie Overton. Jamie Overton certainly isn't going to be playing any part, but he's another one that's on the radar. I'm not sure about Craig Overton. He's had. I think he's one of those that is a bit like in the same bracket for me anyway as Chris Wokes and Ollie Robinson, and in terms of maybe on rotation, but I don't think he's the one that will lead England forward. If he was going to be the one that led England forward, he'd already be one of those that's sort of like a penciled in on the team. That's what my personal view is.
Mhm.